Hello there, duelists. Let me tell you about a problem I've got. Apart from collecting expensive pieces of children's cardboard, I really like going first. Combo or control, it really matters not. So to solve this problem and unshackle myself from the play, I've decided to give Unchained a go. So here we are on the playmat. With an interesting mechanic in linking with the opponent's monsters in both your and your opponent's turn, and a destruction mechanic that isn't very interesting, which has also been done a billion times before. Unchained makes for a decent control deck that has recently been entirely reprinted in the megatins. So let's get down to it. Release the profile. Alright, so monsters. So first up we've got 3 Aruha, and I'm definitely going to butcher some of these names, so you're just going to have to breeze on past that. So the first 2 smaller twins kind of lock you into fiends, which is a bit of an ish in terms of your options that are available, but you know, it's easily workaroundable. So both of the twins, well, in fact all of the cards have kind of got a destruction effect, and Aruha, if it's destroyed, you can special summon a different Unchained from the deck as long as it wasn't destroyed by its own effect. Aruha is also kind of the best starter card in my opinion, so what it can do is it can pop a card on the field to special summon itself from the hand. From there we've got 3 Rakea. So Rakea's got an interesting effect, I suppose I'd describe it as. So what you can do is you can quick pop a card on your side of the field, which can be useful in terms of getting some of the newer cards from the archetype. I say newer, everything's now like a year old, but newer cards from the archetype. It wasn't super useful when it first came out. It's also got the same kind of destruction effect that Aruha has. And then we've got 3 of the more recent twin, which kind of makes them triplets, which is 3 Sarama. So you can target an Unchained card in your graveyard, set it, and then destroy a card on your side of the field. And you can destroy that set card, which does trigger your Unchained monster's effects anyway. And then it's also got the same float when it's popped. And then we've got some of our engine requirements. So we've got 2 Unchained Soul of Disaster, which is kind of the original doggo. So what this can do is it can target one of your opponent's monsters and link both itself and that monster for a Dark Link monster. It also gains 300 attack for each untrained card in the grave. I think it's card? Yeah, card, nailed it. Which obviously is superb, comes up all the time. It actually doesn't, this card stays on the field so infrequently, you know, it's just, you want to get it off immediately. If it's destroyed, you can special summon an Unchained monster from your graveyard. So from there we're running the 2 other souls. In fact, actually it's worth pointing out that the souls are the ones that you have to link with. So you can't link with just an Unchained monster, it's got to be an Unchained soul. And I have seen actually the original soul being cut to 1, but I found I was actually wanting to special summon it from the deck using, you know, the mechanisms to special summon it out, so I've actually bumped it up to 2. The other Unchained soul is definitely the better one. It's got 3000 attack, so it makes it a kind of an aggressive card. Also when it's special summoned, you can discard a card to pop a card on the field. And if it's destroyed, you can special summon it back from the graveyard so long as it's sent there this turn, which I think its pop effect is probably the weakest, but its special summon requirements are easy to get out, so it's quite a versatile card. And from there, we're playing this as kind of like a going second deck, so I'm running 3 Ash Blossom, which I just think is the most generically useful, well, different artworks as well, generically useful kind of hand trap. I'm also running 3 Effect Veiler, which you could easily swap out for $100 worth of infinite impermanence should you wish. I'm just not sure it's really necessary, and the amount of times that it comes up is fairly infrequent. From there we've got the 1 Dinowrestler Pankratops. So this guy's just useful in terms of clearing out boards. He's just a really good disruptor. So, you know, he can attack, he's got 2/6 monsters, you can just drop him on board, and he can also tribute as a cost to pop a card on the field, so it's really good at disrupting your opponents and breaking through your opponent's boards. Alright, so releasing the spells. We've got 3 Pot of Extravagance, and I think this, I really did try to build this deck without Pot of Extravagance. I had built it before, like the megatin reprints, or well, not physically, but I've been testing it out. But without Extravagance, you just don't get the hand resource necessary to keep up with, and keep the consistency that you need for the deck. It's got a reprint obviously in the megatins and also 2 in Chaos, so I think you can pick up a playset for about $50 now, so it's not outrageous, but it's still obviously an expensive contribution to the deck. From there I'm running 1 Upstart Goblin, which does conflict slightly with a Pot of Extravagance. The Pot of Extravagance has to be activated at the start of your main phase, and then you can't draw cards for the rest of the turn, but it's so infrequent that I still think it's worth that consistency bump that Upstart Goblin gives you. From there I'm running 3 Dark Ruler No More, so negate all your opponent's monster effects, can't be negated by monster effects, and also your opponent takes no battle damage for the rest of the turn, but it's just a really good equaliser, and it allows you to just tear apart your opponent's boards with your Unchained and your other effects. From there we're running 3 Abomination's Prison, which is really sad that it's not called an Unchained card, it's not searchable, it's not resettable with Sahara or anything like that, but it's basically add an Unchained card, which is great. More often than not I'm searching for Aruha just to get my ball rolling. Also it's got the same effect as most of the Unchained spells and traps, which is if it's set and destroyed you can special summon an Unchained monster from your deck. From there I'm just playing the 1 Wailing of the Unchained Souls, which I think is definitely cuttable, but basically if you link summon an Unchained link monster you can pop a card on the field, and then also if it's set and destroyed you can special summon 1 from the deck. Alright, and then trap cards rounding up the main deck. So I've got 3 Escape of the Unchained. So this is kind of like a break sword, I suppose, is the way that I've heard it being described. So you pop an Unchained card on a monster on your side of the field, shall I say, to pop a card on your opponent's side of the field. And then it's got that same floating destruction effect, which is actually really useful because it means that going first the card isn't completely redundant, because it basically means that any trap can effectively become a monster so long as you've got the setup, which is quite useful. From there we're playing 3 Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. So this is kind of like your monster reborn, well, your Call by the Grave, maybe not Call by the Grave, Call by the Haunted, I'm just absolutely butchering that. But anyway, you special summon an Unchained monster from your hand or graveyard, and the hand doesn't come up very often, and it's also got the same set destruction floating effect. And then we're running 3 Evenly Matched, which is another one of our kind of equaliser cards, a bit like Dark Ruler No More. You could definitely play, you know, Lightning Storm or Forbidden Droplets or something like that, but I just think, I mean, these cards are expensive enough as it is. Like going into Forbidden Droplets and stuff like that dramatically raises the price, and I'm just not, I mean, they're obviously better, but you can definitely play the deck just with, you know, with Evenly Matched instead. Finally getting onto the pooches of the extra deck. Well, I mean, centaur thing first, but so Dingirsu I think is definitely cuttable, but you've got 2 level 8s that you can make it, and a lot of your ways of disruption require targeting, and also well, it's targeting or destruction or both. So Ding is your way around, you know, your Red Eyes Dragoons, etc. It doesn't come up that often, and I wouldn't really, you know, I wouldn't argue with anyone if they decided to cut it. From there I'm running 3 Unchained Soul of Rage. So this is the one where you can target a special summon monster your opponent controls, and then you can link into a dark link monster with it. If it's destroyed you can add a fiend monster from your graveyard to your hand as well, so that's got some usefulness in terms of the main deck monster cards that can pop, or you know your escape trap card. It's just generally a good card. Then I'm running 3 Unchained Soul of Anguish, which I think you could probably reduce if you wanted to. I think that the extra deck's fairly loose, and that's a good thing because you've got Pot of Extravagance, so you know, obviously if you want to increase ratios to avoid banishing all your useful, you know, kind of extra deck monsters, then that's definitely a way to go. But Unchained Soul of Anguish is very similar to the main deck Pooch in terms of you can target a monster your opponent controls and then link into a dark link monster using it. It's also got the same kind of floating recursion effect as the rage. So if it's destroyed, then you can add a fiend monster back from your graveyard. From there, I'm running 2 Nightmare Unicorns, and again, you could bump this up to 3 if you wanted to. I've just kind of trying to fit space for some techs in, but again, obviously techs lower your consistency if you're extravagance in, but unicorn's normally your way to go with rage, because you'll link away one of their special summon monsters, and then unicorn will then spin something else back to the deck, so you get rid of 2 cards basically, which is really good. Just in kind of that 1 card disruption. From there, I'm running 1 Topologic Trisbania. So this is if a monster special summoned to its own link monster points to you banish that monster and then all spells and traps, which is a good way of clearing out your opponent's back row. This deck does have a little bit of trouble against like back row heavy decks, so Trisbania is kind of my way of at least attempting to get around that. From there onto the link 4s, I'm running 2 Unchained Abomination, which it's a good card, but it somehow doesn't quite feel like it fits into the Unchained link monsters. Like the rest of them kind of link off your opponent's monster. This just does some destruction stuff, which is great. So it's got many pop effects. You can if a card is destroyed, you can pop a card. If a monster is destroyed by battle, you can pop a card, and during the end phase, you can pop a card. You basically just popping cards. And again, it's not bad. It's a 3000 body on board as well, which is fairly decent. From there, I'm running 1 Topologic Bomber Dragon and 1 Topologic Zeroboros. So Bomber Dragon's kind of like your disruption, and I think against a link spam deck, it's a good way of just stopping your opponent in its tracks, because what are they going to do really? But I wouldn't argue with anyone if they were going to cut it. Topologic Zeroboros is another way of kind of clearing out that non-target, non-destruction, monsters, and also it can get reasonably big, especially if you've activated Extravagance. And then finally, I've got the 1 Borrelsword Dragon as kind of like your game ending, which, I wouldn't argue with anyone if they were going to go with, the access code talker. I mean, I just think that you're increasing the price a lot for what Borrelsword Dragon can really do. But again, each to their own. If you've got that $100 to spare, or however much it is, then throw it at it. So Unchained are definitely not my normal deck choice. My definition of kind of a good deck is great at going first, but can push through an established board on the draw. Unchained really flip that and prefer going second, but can still put up, some disruption on going first. All in, you'll steal loads of games, with the opponent unable to contain the grind game that these guys have, and keep up with kind of your equalizers. So it's going to be a 4 for relevance. The fun comes from pinpointing how to crack the opponent's boards, or how to really utilize your recursion and your specific disruption on your opponent's turn. And linking with your opponent's monsters is always a blast. So I'm going to go with a 4 for that too. I was really hoping that the 2020 tins would make these guys a bit more wallet friendly. Alas, all of the going second cards and the extravagance still make this deck fairly shackled to those with deeper pockets. I've estimated this deck at around $320, although the actual core itself is reasonably cheap. So, converted to going second? I think I just might be. Thanks for checking out the profile, and subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content.